are in charge, I think. So, man, there's a whole lot to get to. Let's get to it. First, we're going to start with, not Holly Doan, with John Lennon, actually. And this is Cat Turd. And he says, well, this is 49 seconds of John Lennon talking about who he thinks is in charge. And, man, like, John Lennon at the end was kind of a weird, well, there's a lot of weird stuff about the Beatles, and there's a lot of weird messages that they put out. But I mean, here's John Lennon talking about who he thinks is in charge. So take it with a grain of salt, but interesting stuff. Here we go.
Our society is run by insane people for insane objectives. You know, and I think that's what I sussed when I was 16 and 12 way down the line. But I expressed it differently all through my life. It's the same thing I'm expressing all the time, but now I can put it into that sentence that I think we're being run by maniacs for maniacal ends, you know. If anybody can put on paper what our government and the American government, etc., and the Russian, Chinese, what they are actually trying to do, you know, and what they think they're doing, I'd be very pleased to know what they think they're doing. I think they're all insane. You know, but I'm liable to be put away as insane for expressing that. You know, that's what's insane about it.
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, and not much has changed since then, right? If you express that, like what are these crazy people doing on our behalf? They're spending our money on that? That seems insane. What's the point of that? Right? That's my show, basically. John Lennon does it in a couple of minutes. But here's an example of insane people doing insane things. Christia Freeland says, our economic plan is creating good jobs today and for tomorrow, putting us on the path to net zero. Thank you to the Green Budget Coalition for meeting with me today to share your priorities for Budget 24. And Stop Wokeism says, this is the blueprint for reaching net zero, banning cars, banning furnaces, banning meat, banning dairy, banning single-family homes, living in 300 square foot habitation pods, eating bugs, 15-minute prisons, no travel, no vacations, energy insecurity, poverty, inflation, no private property, digital currency, personal carbon limit tied to digital currency, implanted health passports, communism, feudalism, death. Beware, you will be included in all of this unless you are a member of the political class or the super elite. So choose wisely when voting. And I honestly don't think that's far off. It may seem hyperbolic, it may seem crazy, but I think that if you brought somebody from 1960 and showed them that this was Canada in 2024, they would go back to 1960, presuming you could do that, and say, we have to stop whatever's happening in Canada in 80 years. Like, the whole thing is definitely, absolutely bad. And what we're doing is leading to a diminished, reduced quality of life, standard of living. The standard of living is being reduced because of the people coming into the country, and the government is closing its eyes to that, to the negative impacts of that on purpose. Economic Woes says, thousands in line at a tire factory in Woodbridge, Ontario. How's that labor shortage our government keeps telling us? We see these lines every day at job fairs and food banks. Who's lying? Silent depression. Welcome to Canada. So this is a job fair at a tire factory. Here we go.
Job interview in Canada.
Very Canadian. The video doesn't want to play. This is free speech Twitter, right? Pretty wild stuff. I could probably download the video and get the rest of it to play, but at 38 seconds, it doesn't want to play. Job interview in Woodbridge, Canada, right? And Brittany says, why aren't these young, fit people coming up to the mines? They'd love it. We used to have 0 Indians 5 years ago, and now they're finally coming up. Asians and Black Canadians too. Folks, you don't need these jobs that you line up for. Get a trade, operate equipment. Yeah, and it's super fun too, like operating a drill or something like that. I've heard it's very fun. The Young Pretender says, Saudi has definitely joined BRICS. The finance minister and CB governors of BRICS met in Brazil. It was the first face-to-face meeting under the BRICS financial track with the participation of the 5 countries that became full BRICS members on January 1st, 24. The fact that BRICS is meeting in Brazil, where Lula's there, it tells me there's more to this whole NWO group of people, then they're trying to destroy the United States and the West. And so that tracks, right? Lula being a member of BRICS, Brazil being a member of BRICS, that kind of tracks. But with Brazil being a member of BRICS, I saw the son of Bolsonaro interviewed with Tucker Carlson the other day, talking about how the anti-US, pro-China coalitions have kind of taken over in Brazil. And he said he was talking about how trade used to be heavy with the West and now it's not. And things are changing. And you'd think that the United States would ring alarm bells, right? But again, it's kind of the same thing. You'd think that there would be kind of an alarm bell for, like, there is no labor shortage. You'd think that scenes like this in Canada, in almost semi-rural Canada. I mean, Woodbridge isn't rural, but like, it's not is Woodbridge GTA still? I don't know where the GTA is defined. Sometimes it changes. Sometimes cities divest from the GTA and sometimes they add themselves to the GTA. Anyway, regardless, it's one of those things you'd think that this would ring alarm bells too. And it's not ringing alarm bells. And if it is ringing alarm bells, you're called far right or you're censored because you're saying things that are deemed racist. But it's not. This is an economic signal that what you're saying is not correct and we're on the wrong path. Just like Brazil wanting to trade with the US, not having the opportunity, or a better opportunity comes along in BRICS, and so they move to BRICS, and Lula's there, and yeah, there's something hinky about all of that. So, but this is an indication too. This is a red flag, and people should pay attention, and they're not. Why aren't they? That's strange, don't you think? I think it's strange. We're going to go into censorship, and then we'll talk about the ArriveCan stuff. Wall Street Silver is wondering, why are so many countries trying to make undefined hate speech a criminal charge? This seems likely to be abused massively by government authorities for political reasons. And here are a couple of examples of the governments coming out with hate speech laws, undefined floating hate speech laws. Ireland, hate undefined speech law, proposed 5 years in prison for a meme. France, 3 years in prison, 45,000 euro fine if to speak in opposition against any state-endorsed pharmaceuticals. Canada proposed life sentence in prison, $70,000 fine for hate undefined speech. You are being silenced. Yes, and they want to silence people like me too. And there are a whole bunch of other people who believe that it's
Islamistic.
I didn't push a button. Who believe it's targeting them as well, right? Even having a law like this on the books makes people paranoid that anything they say draws a target on their back. And indeed, they may be right. I think they are probably right. Here is Disclosed TV. This is Rishi Sunak. He's not an elected prime minister. His party was in charge, and the leader of the party stepped down. And in their system, as in our system, the party chooses the leader. And so the leader was chosen, Rishi Sunak, and there you go. So an unelected prime minister talking about democracy in England is quite rich, right? And one other interesting thing, Disclosed TV was muted on my feed. I don't know how the heck they were muted. I didn't mute them, but they were muted on my feed. And I don't know, I'm sure there is a place, and I just haven't had a chance to look into it. But I don't know where you can view your muted accounts. I want to see which accounts I've got muted so I can unmute any accounts that are erroneously muted. Anyway, I didn't know that this was muted. Anyway, here is Rishi Sunak talking about democracy. And it's super funny because he's not democratically in his job in the traditional sense, right? His party was elected. He's now the leader of the party, but he wasn't elected prime minister by the electorate. Okay, here we go.
Islamist extremists and the far right feed off and embolden each other. They are equally desperate to pretend that their violence is somehow justified, when actually these groups are two sides of the same extremist coin. Neither group, except that change in our country can only come through the peaceful democratic process. Both loathe the pluralist modern country we are. Both want to set Britain against Britain, to weaponize the evils of anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim hatred for their own ends. The faith of Islam.
It's funny that everything that is wrong with anybody can be boiled down to Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, blah, 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 blah. It's not the immigration problem. That's anti-Islamophobic. That's Islamophobic. It's not the fact that we're sending money to Gaza. That's anti-Semitic. Is that anti-Semitic? Israel. It's not the fact that we're sending money to Israel. That's anti-Semitic. So everything that anybody would have a problem with, like, oi, you're not spending tax dollars here, and you should be leaving where we're sending it out of it. But then somebody will come back and say, well, you're being anti-Semitic, or you're being this, or you're being that. And it scuttles the conversation around the actual issues. And I think that it's funny that funny is the wrong word, but notable that he's talking about how Islamists, whatever he said, and the far right are the same thing, two sides of the same coin, exactly the same hateful underpinnings. And that's new. This is being injected into the zeitgeist, and they're doing that to justify the censorship. They're doing that so that you'll be on the side of, well, I'm not one of those people. They're targeting those people. It's othering a group and manufacturing public consent for you to action something against that group because they're making the community bad, don't you know? They're racists and stuff. So Rishi Sunak is engaging in it's a kind of censorship, and it's a framing, and it's an exercise done to create the foundation, create the framework to later use against a group of people. And they're not above it. We've seen it. We've already seen it. The anti-vax people, and the framework happened a lot faster, but it got all set up and then boom, actioned right away. And they're trying to do the same thing. Let's talk about Canada. Chad says, ArriveCan, who's our justice minister. This is a bit of history, I believe factual. Okay. So this is interesting context with the online harms bill coming in. Okay. Verini is the member of parliament that took over from David Lametti as justice minister. Arif tabled legislation to imprison Canadians for life for hate crimes on the internet. He's of Indian descent, a Shia Muslim, born in Kampala, Uganda, Africa. Indians in Uganda were expelled by Ugandan President Amini under the allegations of disloyalty to Uganda. Arif's family came to Canada as refugees after being expelled. He attended McGill University, University of Toronto, law school, and became a lawyer and was elected as a member of parliament on October 19th, 2015. He is pushing hard to pass more hate speech laws in Canada to imprison Canadians up to life in prison for online hate crimes. So that's interesting, right? Like the context there is interesting. Where does he come from? And the lineage is just the Uganda response to his people, and then what happened after that. And now he's acting against Canadians in his role as Attorney General. That seems weird. Doesn't it seem strange? Arif Verini says, when it comes to internet safety, the status quo is failing us and our kids. The Online Harms Act is our plan for a safer online world. And this is massively ratioed. Well, massively ratioed. It's almost 700 comments, 100 likes. And Kirk says, you're a liar. And this bill isn't about protecting kids. It's about control. And he's referencing himself. And he's outlining, he says, Liberals' Bill C-63 is Hamas-like, hiding behind children as a shield and trying to make Minority Report a reality, which in a way it does. It has a likelihood of passing as NDP mouth breathers got their biscuit, and now they will perform like good puppies for the Liberals. Canadians will have a choice, take to the streets or roll over for totalitarianism. Even the declaration of another Emergencies Act isn't a threat anymore, since your rights and freedoms will be removed anyways, directly and indirectly. Honestly, it's not incorrect. And fundamentally, this is not about making the online world safer. It's about taking control of the conversation online. Wall Street Silver again says, Canada's new online harms bill will amend the Criminal Code and Human Rights Act. Hate speech can be fined and up to life in prison. Canada is going full commie. The thing is, people aren't going to stand for it. It's like the shutting down the playgrounds. People will not tolerate this, and the courts shouldn't tolerate it. And if the courts do tolerate it, Canadians won't, I don't think. I mean, we'll see. But here's Brian Lilly and Laurie Goldstein and, I don't know, Bantra? I don't know her. Here we go.
Batra. With me are Brian Lilly and Lori Goldstein. Brian, I think our viewers would remember The Minority Report. It was a movie done. Tom Cruise was in it, but it was a science fiction book from 1956 by Philip Dick, and it's all about pre-crime, preventing pre-crime, and going into this online legislation that the Liberals just introduced. There's a portion of it that is trying to prevent pre-crime. What the hell is going on here?
It's if someone is suspected that they might partake in a hate crime, they can be arrested and put under house arrest to stop them from committing the crime. This is flagrantly unconstitutional. There's no way that this would stand. And you know, I actually think that of a few parts of the bill. This is a very problematic bill that the government is going to wrap itself up in the mantle of saying, we are protecting children. Why are you against protecting children from online harm? But you've got the pre-crime stuff. You've got life sentences for hate crimes. That's putting it up there with first-degree murder. Now, unless you commit a hate crime where you kill a bunch of people motivated by hate, I don't see that standing up in court. And it would be absolutely bizarre for that to stand. So there have been some calls to separate the bill out, the portions that deal with protecting kids from sexual exploitation and such, plus all this other stuff, which has nothing to do with protecting kids. Put them out as two bills, debate them, fix them, but this thing, it will not stand if it's passed.
You know, Lori, far too often, a lot of these pieces of legislation get presented and they get heralded as, oh, this is great, we're protecting kids. But then you do a deep dive into the details and you find little nuggets like you can be put under house arrest for the thought that there could be a pre-crime in that you may be contemplating or something. This is scary.
Well, this, as Brian said, this was deliberate. It was political. There are aspects of the bill, as you both said, that are legitimate. Things like revenge porn, dealing with that, dealing with child exploitation, child porn, the abuse of children. Those are legitimate. But what they did was what got the headlines, because people, it was released late, people read it, oh, this isn't so bad, it's not as bad. But then when you do a deep dive, as both the Canadian Civil Liberties Association,
well, as anybody who was looking did and realized that, yeah, they're gonna use this for pre-crime. They're gonna use this against their political opponents, right? And yeah, so other people than just me. Son of a Bench is noticing that CBC is getting $90 million in more funding as well. CBC will receive $1.4 billion, and for their 2024-25 fiscal budget from the Liberal government, an increase of $90 million, despite employee bonuses, declining viewers, and declining advertising revenue. Budget increase from 1.3 to 1.4 billion. Lots and lots of money. Wasted money. Mark says the propaganda machines are getting a boost for their CEOs, just $90 million extra dollars, drop in the bucket. It's not very much compared to the rest, right? But again, ArriveCan was just $60 million. So this is a bigger scandal than that, and it's not a scandal at all, right? Bump in the road. Robin Babber's responding to this. He says, how can media cover the government objectively when the government signs its paycheck? I can't wait for the day that Pierre Poilievre defunds the CBC. The problem is the government is the biggest customer. And if the biggest customer wants propaganda, well, you give the biggest customer what they want, right? And who cares what anybody else wants? This guy is paying to keep the lights on, so write what they want. That's what's happening. Chrystia Freeland is responding to Pascal Saint-Onge. Pascal Saint-Onge is the Heritage Minister, and she says, a free press is vital in informing, engaging, and connecting Canadians. Our renewal of the local journalism initiative supporting independent news organizations across the country. With this, we're ensuring Canadians get reliable reporting in their communities. I don't think anybody that I know goes to the television for news unless they're over 65. Christia Freeland says access to local news and information is essential, particularly in a country as vast as ours with communities large and small. And that's why we're providing significant new financial supports to journalists and local media. And gov.exe responds, he says, independent accounts on Twitter do more to expose government fraud, corruption, and criminality with a $0 budget than the entire mainstream media does with an 8-figure budget. This is why they're trying to censor the flow of information online. They see us as a threat because we can't be bought. That's it, right? I do this because I really enjoy it, and it's a wonderful hobby for me, and it stops me telling all of my story while I'm doing the dishes to an uninterested 11-year-old and 8-year-old. Dad, can we watch TV now? Okay, but don't you want to hear what Christia Freeland's going to do next, kids? No. Anyway, so I enjoy doing this, but they can't buy me. Like if somebody called me up and said, Mark, we'd really like you to cover this story, but could you cover it like without mentioning this really inconvenient fact? I would laugh at them and then lead with the inconvenient fact and mention it over and over again and then make a nickname that had to do with the inconvenient fact. Because I don't do what I'm told. Because if you tell me to do something and you offer me a financial incentive, it's probably against my financial interest to do what I'm inclined to do, but I'm inclined to like shove it in your eye and say, nah, thanks. I'd rather expose you for attempting to bribe me. So, hey, I guess that works against me, but they can't bribe people who do this for fun is the point I'm trying to make. And that's what we're doing, right? And a lot of the mainstream media has turned into paycheck machines, which can't blame them. That's kind of the culture we were raised in through the 90s and the early 2000s. You didn't even really need to protect it. You didn't question it. You just do what your boss says. And then somewhere along the line, the bosses became authoritarian, tyrannical communists, and they're censoring absolutely everything. And we're in real trouble because of the people's inability to get real information to make a map about what's going on in the world, right? Nathan is highlighting that Jeremy McKenzie has had his account suspended on Twitter, and so he's off Twitter, and the reason was posted. He did a little live on it, talking about how he was promoting violence, and he says basically, well, hold on, I've got the video. I'll play it for you. Hold on. Okay, here it is.
I'm just getting in the door a second ago and getting the fire going. I do have I think it's live, but I'm not sure. I have an appearance on White Rabbit Radio, I think in about 35 minutes, 40 minutes. So I got to go get showered and cleaned up here and get on with that. But it's just funny, like Twitter is filthy with porn, child porn, war crimes, torture, and just generally, Jews killing people and doing horrible, awful stuff. And, but they didn't give me a reason. They said, you're promoting violence. I am? Where? Where did you say that? And the appeal was denied within 90 seconds. So Ottawa's real upset. Bro, I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to get a new pay-as-you-go burner phone, just like that's how I got this account. And I'm just going to make another one. You're stupid, and you can't win. Bye!
Right. There you go. And there you go. There's a cat and mouse game ongoing with freedom of speech on the internet. They want to be able to charge him $70,000 for making them feel unsafe, and then they want to put him in jail, and they want to be justified in doing that. That's why they're doing what they're doing. That's why. That's it. Update on the pronoun thing on Twitter. Shia says apparently X reinstated the misgendering rule, so I have to test it out. And she says if I get suspended, you can find me at Libs of TikTok somewhere else, I guess. And so she says Richard Levine is a man. He's male. He's a man. Dylan Mulvaney is male. Ellen Page is female. She's a woman. And Elon Musk says this is just about repeated targeted harassment of a particular person. Interesting. So Shia pushes back and says using correct sex-based pronouns for someone is harassment. We're being forced to lie. What about harassment in general? These are accounts who repeatedly target and harass specific individuals in an obsessive way. What constitutes repeated and targeted? And why do only one group of people get this special treatment? So yeah, the questions and the censorship is certainly going one way, and it's not a surprise if you've been paying attention, but it is a surprise that we have to stand up and defend like objective reality, right? Like if everybody said this cup was blue and it looked orange or red to you, I think it's orange or red to you, would you be forced to say that's blue even though you know it's orange or red, right? And it's the same thing. Like if somebody put like bad construction paper over top that was kind of peeling off, like would you, like it's an orange cup with some construction paper on it. Yes, we can both concede that the construction paper is blue, but it's not a blue cup. Right? Right. Okay. Concerned Canadian, let's talk about ArriveCan. Let's talk a little bit more focused on Canadian politics. Here's Anita Anand, and she was the Minister of Procurement at the time of all of this, and she should have signed off on some of the things that were happening. And she says, well, I didn't know about anything. Here we go.
A D&D employee named David Yo was awarded a contract, the ArriveCan contract, while he was also CEO of Dalian Enterprises. You were the Minister of Defense at the time. Were you aware that he was employed in the department at the time? Were you aware that he was a benefactor of that contract?
I was definitely not aware. I was very surprised to hear this news. I am heartened to see that he has been suspended from his role as a public service employee.
He got like millions of dollars from contracts from the government in multiple ministries. He's suspended from his job. Oh no! Did you cancel all the contracts? Have you asked for money back? What have you examined the delivered like the deliverables from the companies that he controls? Have you investigated the contract, like any of the other contracts? There's so many questions, but she's celebrating. She's like, yeah, we fired that, or we suspended that guy. Give me a break. Holy, he's not hurting for money. My question is, what work did he do? What work does the company do? And what's the oversight? How many years has he been scamming like this? Because if there was no work done, that's fraud, right? If it was no work, if it was just money for nothing, fraud, right? But if there was work done, then we have to examine like what work was done, what did he outsource? Because okay, outsourcing work is work. And I mean, you can argue that, and the conservatives are saying that it's not work at all, but quarterbacking projects like online projects, getting deliverables, making sure everything's working, blah, blah, blah. All of that stuff is work. Like it really is work. And sometimes a programmer can't be the main contractor, right? Like if you're building a house and you get a drywaller in and the drywaller is really good at drywalling and it just looks beautiful, right? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. You don't want him framing the house. You don't want him putting in the plumbing. You know what I'm saying? Like there are things that happen on a website that need more than one contractor. So you might need somebody who's managing things. Just to put it out there. So finding out what exactly they did, finding out exactly, like maybe it's worth some money. Maybe it's not worth $20 million, but maybe it's worth some money. Finding out exactly what they did would be a good idea. Finding out exactly who they were contracting out would be a good idea. If they were contracting out another D&D employee and that employee also had $1 million contracts for nothing or $1 million contracts for something, but the contracts for something were contracting out the other D&D employee, right? Now we got to sue. Like what the heck happened? But these guys are very surface level. They're not asking any of these questions. They're asking like, oh, is he suspended? Well, who cares if he's suspended? He's a millionaire multiple times over in 37 years of this.
And due to this very serious nature of these issues, I know that D&D is launching an internal investigation into the matter. We are, as a government, in the process of suspending contracts with Dalian, but the answer to the question is no, I had no idea.
No idea. Just a complete mystery to me. I found out when you found out. I'm shocked, right? You'd think she'd be upset. You'd think she'd want to get to the bottom of it, right? Here's Andy Lee digging to the bottom of the mess of paperwork. And it's just incredible, the digs that she gets. She's asking the right questions. She says, the best part is that you all think this is a massive scandal and haven't even found out yet how many other companies winning government contracts David Yu of Dalian Enterprises, who has worked at the Department of National Defense for 37 years, is part of. Just wait, the best is yet to come. Andrew Coyne is responding to all of this scandal. He says, it's hard to say what the best part of this story is. Is it that a guy pulling all these contracts was a public servant? Is it that one of the lead contractors on ArriveCan was an anti-vax PPC candidate? That whole thing is, it seems to me, the candidate is a rogue candidate. But I mean, I haven't dug into it too much, but even when I was running for PPC, we had multiple bad actors within my inner circle trying to undermine the campaign or stymie the campaign, whatever it is. So there's all sorts of strange things, strange situations that happen with candidates. And if they can be a candidate, then, I mean, what better position to sabotage? And if you get in as a PPC candidate, then you can act crazy, right? Like, there's all sorts of benefits to pretending to be something that you're not and to smear your opponents, right? So who was this guy? Or the whole scam was taking advantage of an Indigenous set-aside. Well, yeah, there's that too, right? Anyway, Andy Lee continues. She says, I'll even throw mainstream media a bone here, even though they don't deserve it for taking taxpayer subsidies and ripping off my work. Who is Dan Moorcroft? What is his relationship with David Yeo? And how many federal contracts have they won over the years through QMR staffing? We sorted this all out way back in November. Well done, team. We were only about half a year ahead of our multi-billion-dollar subsidized mainstream media, and we did it with no money and no resources. Threads are here. So she goes through Dalian Enterprises receiving $40 million from 2017 to 21, allowing them to afford luxurious offices worth $4.7 million at 200 Britain Street in Toronto, shared with Core GTA, a headhunter with top resources, including Cordax. So there's all sorts of information here about this ArriveCan style scam. And this was months ago, right? And Andy Lee continues, my, look at the national defense contracts going to QMR staffing while David Yeo was working with the Department of National Defense and a director of the company along with Dalian. Since Dalian only has 2 employees, one has to wonder if they subcontracted out to each other. Imagine that, a numbered company that DND employee and CEO of Dalian, David Yeo, is a director of, shares a corporate address with QMR Staffing Solutions, and the other director, Dan Moorcroft, works in procurement. What are the odds of that? So wonder if Andrew will plagiarize your work like so many others did. She says, I don't think he will. So maybe not. And Derek says, is it cool that our liberal government is erasing records? What do you say, CPCHQ? So Andy Lee has been looking for other things, and she says, oh dear, it appears we've broken a link. They're scrubbing. So, and they're looking at tax records for QMR Staffing Solutions, et cetera, and the procurement contracts are just, oh man, just the website's not there right now. So shucks, right? So it seems very hinky. It seems like there's all sorts of corruption and insider business going on that we're not subject to, even though it's all of our money, and they're using it for who knows what, sending it to Ukraine, who knows what they're doing, procurement packages. Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to canadapoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop down tab for shop and donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful